It's Thursday. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the program. I am Nifemi Ogunto. It was a black day yesterday in Lagos when a three-story building that housed a school, residential apartment, as well as shops collapsed. We understand that nearly 12 people fell dead in that incident. Thankfully, scores were rescued by respondents, and quite a number of people are currently injured and receiving medical treatment at different hospitals in Lagos. Now, there are a lot of questions to ask. What perhaps the Commissioner of Education have some answers to also give us as regards whether indeed schools should be in that particular apartment, which we understand had been marked for demolition. Recall that a couple of years ago, a building also collapsed close to that particular area, and certain buildings have been marked to be demolished. Now, I'm joined this morning by a structural engineer. He's also retired permanent secretary in Lagos. He's a fellow of the Nigerian Institute of Structural Engineers, Mr. Wasiu Olukwala. Good morning and thank you for joining us.
Good morning.
So I understand that structural engineering is a sub-discipline of civil engineering, right? Correct me if I'm wrong, and the structural engineers are trained to design the bones and muscles, that create the form and shape of man-made buildings. Walk us through your operations and how significant it is in, building, especially in this part of the world.
Thank you very much, Nifemi. Structural engineering is a specialist aspect of civil. Civil has many dimensions, but structural aspect, it deals with the skeletal aspect of engineering elements. Let's take a typical example of a building. See, the elements that makes it to stand, the columns, the beams, the foundations, those are the elements. It's just like human being. When you talk of a skeleton, that's the bone that makes the man stand. Equally ditto for the building is the columns, all those things. So it's an essential aspect of engineering.
At what point precisely do you come in? Because we seem to have had a couple of building collapse in Lagos in the past couple of years. Do you work with the architect? Do you start working before the building itself is conceptualized?
Thank you very much. The architect has the concept. He's a beautician of building. He wants a special type of building. Then the architect will now come to the structural engineer. I want this building to stand. What does it take? It is for the structural engineer now to look for the strength and the stiffness of all the structural elements in the building.
Is that a standard procedure in Lagos?
It is standard procedure worldwide. For building only, the architect has a concept.
Okay.
Then the engineer, the job of engineer is just to make it safe, stable, economical, and have a pleasing look.
So why do our buildings keep collapsing in Lagos if architects are supposed to liaise with structural engineers who are supposed to give them the model and the format of creating structures that should last the test of time?
Well, buildings will not collapse ordinarily if the jobs are given to the professionals. Let's start from that. Because as we are saying now, these buildings, we have some buildings that are meant for residential. We have one, we call something imposed load. If it is residential, it has its own imposed load, which is different from commercial.
Okay.
Commercial is different from institution. So in a situation where you are intermingling all this occupancy, then problem starts coming from there.
So this particular building in Itafaji now, we understand occupied a school, there's a residential, there are some residential apartments, as well as some shops at the base of it. You're saying that is structurally wrong?
It is wrong. Because, you see, the weight of a man standing on a building is different from the weight of a storage office where you have storage, where you have computers. See, that's the beginning of our problem.
But that seems to be a usual thing in Lagos. You see people live in the house and then there are shops somewhere in the house. How come that has become a normal?
It is not a normal situation. And I think it's mainly in our environment here that that sort of thing is happening. If well, most of us must have traveled out. When they say a place is residential, it is purely residential. You see, because you have overloaded the structures. Because the structural engineer will have to say, what do you want this building for? Is it for library? Is it for commercial purpose? And he will use adequate the imposed load. We call it imposed load for it. But if you don't do that, that's the beginning of the problem.
We've also discovered that oftentimes it is story buildings that collapse, especially in this part of the world. It appears story buildings are more susceptible to building collapse than singles. Is that accurate?
No. You see, once there is no difference between a single-story building or 100-story building, whatever. It is the concept. You see, for the structural engineers, they will have to start, if it is 100-story building, they will have to start the design right from the top, from the topmost to the bottom, to the foundation. It is then that you now say, okay, this is what my building needs for it to stand. See, but if you now say, if the man, a structural engineer, has designed for 100-story building, and you have gone about 101, 102, I mean, one has deviated.
How can a building be modified? Because what we see play out in Lagos is some sort of partnership between landlords and developers. So a landlord who's built a single story, partners with the developer who comes to build one or more layers on that particular building. There are some who would say that this is critical to what we've been experiencing. But just before you answer that, let's take you very quickly to the location of that building collapse. We understand that the DG Lasema is there to address the press as we speak right now.
I have to support the children.
To clinics and hospitals around here. We have some information about that. So all of these have been put at the table of the Honorary Commissioner for Health, and with his team, they're trying to put that figure together. Like I said, this has generated, a lot of conflicting figures, and we want to be careful with this. In fact, the ministry will go ahead to even get names of survivors and those who are, dead, so that we'll put this behind us soon. So for now, I want to appeal to all of us again. Give us a little time. We're going to send out a report, a press release soon, where we will analyze and then give exact figures of these people.
Right,
so I'll allow the number man to.
So you just came in.
Yes.
I don't think it would be fair to ask you your impression, but tell us all the same. What have you seen? From what you've seen, what do you think?
Well, like I said before, my name is Air Commodore Akugbe. I'm Representative Director General, National Emergency Management Agency, Engineer Mustafa Yunusa Mihaja.
Not good.
Sent his deepest sympathy to our brothers and sisters and the parents of those children who lost their lives. And to those that are in the hospital, he wished them very speedy recovery. For him, emergency management is not just a job that you have given him to do. It's his way of life, it's his culture. And that is why he have asked us to come here. We've been monitoring it since yesterday. And he has also asked me to convey his deep appreciation for the effort of the scholars led by the National Emergency Management Agency, supported by SEMA and every other person. So he was very, very impressed in rescuing the people here. Like the DG SEMA said, it's an ongoing process. It's an ongoing process, and we're going to continue to do that. He has directed that nobody should be left under the rubble. The rubble should be scattered until we are convinced, beyond reasonable doubt, that there's no Nigerian that is under there.
This problem appears to be peculiar, to this quarters in Lagos. Have you thought about what to do in order to avert, let it be preventive, this kind of thing, instead of remediating?
Well, there are statutory organizations and agencies that are saddled with quality, integrity, and everything. For us in NEMA, we are more concerned with humanitarian management. The consequences of disaster like this, what do we do with the Nigerians who were affected? How do we bring succor to them? So going with the integrity of the buildings and all, we leave that to the Lagos State government to do and deal with it. They will deal with it and come up with, a procedure that will be encouraging to everybody.
Have you made any input, maybe official input, as to how to proceed, for them to proceed, in respect of this patrol?
You see, making input will be preempting the issue until they tell you what has happened. Then you bring your own experience to bear. So until they tell us, it's an expert domain, which you cannot just foray into. It's not an emotional thing. It's not an emotional thing. It's born on expertise. So we leave them, we leave the relevant agencies to come up with that. Where I'm concerned now, those that are in hospital, those that need care now, that is what the DG is saying now. So that how do we make them recover quickly and bring succor to all of them? Yes.
If I may ask, what is it that you're bringing? Is there any some sort of relief materials you're giving to some of the displaced persons? Or what are you doing or compensation for some of the victims?
This is an assessment. When I go back, first of all, there has to be first intervention, which the Lagos State have done. Then go back, you brief it in the shortest time. The material that we are going to bring will come in here. Yes. Thank you very much.
A lot of people believe that in Nigeria, somehow we're not proactive in helping to prevent.
Location of the building collapse in Lagos yesterday, it's a Faji, and you just listened to representative of the Director General of the National Emergency Management Agency talking about what they're doing. Earlier, we also listened to the General Manager of the Lagos State Emergency Management Agency. We understand the rescue operations are still ongoing. A survivor was taken out just earlier this morning, and we understand that there are still plans to ensure that no one is left behind under that rubble. Fellow Nigerian Institute of Structural Engineers, Mr. Wasio Olokunwola is still right here with me in the studio. Thank you for staying the course. Earlier we were talking about to what extent can you modify a building? Because what we see in Lagos today are single-story buildings that are being modified to carry one or two other layers on them.
Thank you very much. As Availa said, the concept issue starts with the architects. Whoever wants to modify the building needs to go back to the architect. Say, I want to modify my building. Is it possible for me, yes or no? It is for the architect to tell you yes or no. If he says yes, then the architect will come to the structural engineer. Please, my client wants to modify. Now, with your design, is it advisable or not? See, the structural engineer will now go back to his design because we normally have what we call factors of safety. And he looks, if that factor of safety can take care of it, he will give you the go ahead. If not, you dare not.
You know that it is indeed a double tragedy for victims of building collapse in Lagos, given the exorbitant amount of money that Lagosians pay for accommodation. But help us understand how we can identify a structurally defective building. Because people are agitated now. Before they pay, is there a way they can look at the building and tell that, oh, this is going to collapse soon?
Thank you, Nifem. It's very easy because, visually, by the time a layman in engineering sees that a building is defective, that is, it has failed. Because before you get to collapse, you will get failure stage. And that is what the common people do see. So for you to have seen it, it's telling you, the building is telling you, I'm failing, the next thing is collapse. So building will give us enough of time before it collapses.
There are signs that people can see.
Well, if you don't see it, it starts from tiny cracks. That's what the engineers, some engineers, we have the eagle eye. We will see it. This building is cracked, it has problem. But laymen may not see it. But by the time the laymen see the building, it has deflected, then it's telling you, I failed though, the next thing is collapse.
What is your institute doing precisely to check quackery? Because you mentioned that earlier. That seemed to be at the base of most of the challenges we're having right now, where buildings are, set up, and then they must have consulted a structural engineer who gave them a go-ahead. And then we experienced this very, very distasteful experience.
Thank you very much. The institution is more of a professional one, and we issue out advice to the government, to the private sectors, and to the populace. Like we have been giving out warning notices. Since anytime we have a collapse, we go to the air, to the national newspaper. But that is, we can only give awareness, and this is what we have been doing. We are not empowered to sanction whatever. We can only advise, and this is what we have been doing.
But you are a stakeholder, and it is the integrity of your career that is at stake. If there are fakes, if there are quacks who are actually building on your behalf, shouldn't you be concerned? Can't you engage authorities and regulatory bodies?
We do, like I said, especially in Lagos State. You see, the Commissioner for Physical Planning is very, very cooperative. In most cases, some of our members, even through our platform, when they see defective buildings, we forward it to them. With this social media thing, it has assisted a lot.
Let me hold you for a minute. Let's get back to Itafaju right now, where our correspondent Sarah Ayeko is standing by. Sarah, what updates do you have for us? Is rescue operation still on?
Yes, I can tell you the rescue operation is still ongoing. The Emergency Management Agency, the SEMA, in Lagos State, has said that they will make sure they uproot and evacuate every debris you see here to ensure that there are no persons under the debris. But for now, they are not excavating for now, but then they said they will still continue to excavate and to be sure. But earlier, some residents were saying that they could hear screams, they could hear persons crying from under the rubble, but then the Lagos State Emergency Management Agency into action to keep digging and evacuating the debris, but then still they have not seen anything yet. So the general manager, that's Lasema general manager, said that they will still continue to check if there is anybody under the rubble. But you know that as about 3 a.m. this morning, one body was recovered by the Emergency Management Agency, and it has been taken to the morgue, although they had said that the family is aware of that person that died, that the body that was recovered this morning. But apart from that, we've not heard anything. The figures are still the same. Injured persons, the figure is still the same, but then we are having conflicting figures. And so the officials are saying that they will take a moment until they get their data right. They're not going to be giving us an official figure as to the number of casualties we had.
The last time we heard from the GM Lasema, he made mention that they had gotten to ground zero. How longer do you expect this rescue operation to go on for?
Now, when we got here this morning at about 6:30 a.m., they had told us that they had gotten to ground zero, which was what we expected. We had expected that very soon the operations will be, they will be ending the operation. But I said now, because of residents' agitation, that they should still keep checking to ensure that there are no bodies left under the rubble. And so that's why the emergency agency has decided to continue the operation, and until they evacuate to the foundation level and evacuate all the debris that you see here, they will not stop. And so that's what the Emergency Management Agency hopes to do for now. Earlier, we also had the federal delegation from the federal government. They just spoke to us earlier, and they come here to assess the situation of things. You know that President Muhammad Buhari and some of the dignitaries have also communicated with the victims and families of those who lost their lives and the victims that are in the hospital. And I just said that that's the federal government has said that they will assess the situation, which is what they have done. They will assess it, get the details, and then go back to the national level to see if there is any succor, if there is any relief materials that they will be bringing down for the victims of this incident.
Sarah, talk to us about crowd control, especially at that area. Last night, security agencies had to come in with attack dogs. Are people, ensuring that responders have enough space to do their work at this time?
had yesterday, the emergency responders do have a headway this morning. Of course, since they are at about 30 p.m. yesterday, they ensured that the place was cordoned to ensure that residents do not have a way, do not come into the site of the scene. And so right now, residents are being barred away from the site of the scene. And so the persons that are in this perimeter are security officials, emergency responders, safety officials from different agencies, safety engineers. Persons are here to ensure that they give an assessment of what has happened. You know that it's a sad one. A severe accident that happens that involves children, which is why a lot of them are crying and agitating, demanding that the state government, as to even to the federal government level, ensures that they enforce the laws that are on ground, because we know that there's a code called the National Code that engineers or developers or the council is supposed to abide by. Because the NBC, the code is not abided by. So you have a situation whereby there is a breakdown of law and order, and so there seems to be a gap between the persons that should enforce these laws, that should enforce the code, and the people, that's the persons that own these buildings. Now, some persons have said that they have marked some of these buildings in this area, because you see that they are closely knitted to each other. They have marked them for demolition, but you find it's difficult to get the occupants out of this building. It's just unfortunate that something like this happened yesterday. When we spoke to some residents, they told us that they had called some persons from the council to come and check the building, because they could hear cracks, they could see that sand was pouring out from the building, and they could sense that the building would cave in at any point in time. So it's just a very sad one that the occupants didn't take it, and even for some of the persons in other buildings that have been earmarked for demolition are still not taking it as to leaving the buildings that have been earmarked for demolition. So it's important that as the government is doing their own parts, the people are also contributing and adhering to the laws that have been set aside for them by the government.
Sarah, keep an eye on the scene of the building collapse for us, and we'll be back to get more updates when you have them. Sarah Ayeko, TVC News correspondent there at Itafaji, scene of the building collapse that happened around 10 in the morning yesterday. So there appears to be a lot of signs. They saw cracks on the wall, there were sands falling and all of that. But how closely knitted, or how close together can buildings be? Because you look at the island, in places like that, you see buildings, you almost cannot pass through, two individual buildings.
Yes. Thank you, Nifemi. You see, in building profession, we have so many divisions. Building, it starts from the survey works, then the planning. Now, the area you are talking about is the area of planners. Building must be separated from each other or one another depending on the number. Well, for residential, the side ones are 3 meters on the left-hand side, 3 on the right, 3 at the back, and the frontage is about 6 meters for services. But do you see that in some of our areas, especially the indigenous island? See, you don't see it.
We need to wrap up now. Give us your professional advice, for a place like the island, where we seem to have had a huge occurrence of building collapse in the past. Some of them have been marked for demolition, but you look at how closely built these houses are, you begin to wonder, how do we even begin to demolish these buildings? What exactly is the way forward now?
Thank you very much. This thing has been done in the past, even before independence, and that's why you have redevelopment of Lagos. You see, if you look at the present Oluwole, it has been redeveloped, So those old areas needs to be developed.
Are you suggesting that the buildings have to be brought down?
I'm talking of redevelopment. Buildings have lifespan. You see?
How long can a building last?
Depending on your maintenance aspect. If you maintain the building, it can last as long as you want it. But if you don't maintain it, you leave it as it is, well, a good building may last for 30 or 40 years. But if you keep on maintaining, it goes on forever.
What I'm
until-
asking precisely is for a building that has a structural defect.
Yes.
Are there alternatives to salvaging the situation without totally bringing the building down?
Yes, nothing is impossible, but you must have the expert advice. If it's something that can be salvaged, you will be advised accordingly. But if not, it is better to remove the building rather than to lose lives. And I sympathize with what happened yesterday. It is very, very unfortunate. It shouldn't have happened. You see, this is what we are talking with engineering. If it is medical, a medical doctor can always lose a patient. But look at a building, see the number of lives. So we're engineering. You see, engineering is what we are doing is trying to work as per nature. But if you now go against the engineering principle, the consequence, the effect is very, very suicidal.
You agree with me that quite a number of people have questions to answer, and some people have to be brought to book, people have to be sanctioned, but unfortunately when incidents like this happen, relevant government agencies tell you we're on top of the situation, we're going to dig for facts, we're going to investigate, but we don't seem to hear the end of the matter. What are your expectations in this case?
Well, with government establishment, you see, a lot of bureaucracy is involved. You see, I happen to have worked with government, and it's the same thing with even in judiciary. If someone has been found guilty and is asked to be executed, it will not be done immediately. It has to follow the procedure. Ditto for the buildings. If buildings are to be demolished, it has to go through procedures, legal procedures, until when it gets to the final approval. You see, so those are the bureaucracies that are involved.
All right. I must say a very big thank you, Mr. Wasiu Olokunla. He's a retired permanent secretary in Lagos, a structural engineer, a fellow of the Nigerian Institute of Structural Engineers. Thank you very much for joining us on the program.
Thank you, Nifemi. I'm grateful for giving me the opportunity.
Of course. I understand that Theophilus Elema is also standing by right now to give us more updates as regards the building collapse story we are following. Theophilus, what updates do you have for us at this time?
Well, Ifemi, we're here at this point. Now, it's totally different from what happened yesterday. The rescue efforts are still ongoing, but this time around we had the privilege of interviewing some people who were directly involved. Now, a woman I spoke with earlier said that she was not around. She stayed at the penthouse of the same building that collapsed yesterday. Her kids were in school and her husband wasn't around. Her grandfather also was in the house with her sister, but he was rescued later. But she was only grateful that none of her family members were hurt. She was one of the victims in one of the occupants of the building that collapsed yesterday. But the situation here as well is that everywhere has been cordoned off. Residents, as you can see, here is freer now as opposed to what happened yesterday, where we had a lot of people coming out, observe what is happening in this axis, and we have policemen around there, we have security agencies, we have LASEMA, everyone's here to ensure that the sport goes on smoothly. And of course, we hear that a lot of buildings around here have already been marked for demolition, and so the government is leaving no stone unturned to ensure that buildings that are marked, that are not up to standards, do not stand in this area, not just in this Marseille Street, but in the whole of Lagos Island.
Well, Theophilus Elema there giving us some human angle to what transpired there at the scene of the incident. You mentioned the fact that that area has now been condoned of. Last night, there were attack dogs almost unleashed on you. Help us understand precisely what that situation is like right now.
Now we still have members of the force, the police force, the Federal Road Safety Corps. We have some military personnel here. Lagos neighborhood safety, or a whole lot of security officials around here. But as opposed to what happened yesterday, today is calmer. The people, we have crowd around here. A lot of these places have been cordoned off, and so residents around here cannot go beyond a certain point of this area. So it also aids the investigation around here, and we have names of the fires here on standby as well. Then we have some things around here just and they are helping out with the rescue efforts here. So opposed to what happened yesterday, where the crowd here in this dense population was a bane of rescue efforts. Today it's a little bit calm. We do not have such crowd here as opposed to what we had yesterday. And of course the attacks are not here again.
All right, Theophilus Alaba, thank you for the updates at this time. We'll be back with you for more when you have more information for us. We're tracking that story and we're sure that we'll keep you abreast of what happens. But let's turn our attention to other issues now. The governorship election that held in 29 states is far from over. Of course, last Saturday, state assembly polls also took place in about 991 constituencies across the nation. But as we speak right now, elections are still inconclusive in 6 states. We have Adamawa, Benue, Bauchi, Kano, and Plateau State. I'm joined this hour by Ahmed Buyosore Jaji, a political affairs analyst. Thank you very much for finding time to come, Madam. Olayinka Ola Daniels is a lawyer and political affairs analyst. Glad to have you come.
Thank you.
Just yesterday, a member of the House of Reps referred to INEC as inconclusive National Electoral Commission. According to him, prior to 2015, there were just few cases of inconclusive election, but it seemed to have become a recurrent decima now. But let me begin with the lawyer. There appears to be, a battle between INEC guideline and the constitutional provision. Reference has been made to section 179, subsection 2, that only requires that a winner emerges when you have the maximum number of votes, or what they call not less than 1/4 of all the votes cast in each of at least 2/3 of the local government areas in the state. But INEC guideline says, in a situation where the number of cancelled votes exceed the margin between the two winners, I mean the two candidates with the highest votes, then there's going to be another rerun, so to speak. What are your thoughts about this?
Yeah, well, when it comes to the INEC guidelines, you can't take it too far from the Electoral Act. Now, if you look at what happened up to last year, before the election we just had, and that they were unable to give assent to the Electoral Act as amended and all that, that also, became the issues. And that was the fear of both sides, the National Assembly and the executive, that if we give assent to this, this may be the issues at the end, may be the problem of going back and forth. So they tried to avoid that. That's the reason why the president said, no, Mr. President said he's not going to assent to this, because there is back and forth. They send it to the House will remove. They'll take it back to the presidency. The presidency will say, no, this is not inclusive and all that. That's then bring INEC to say, okay, fine, yes, the constitution is clear. The provision of the constitution is clear. Don't also forget that this same constitution gives powers to the INEC for some of these guidelines and all that, and that was how the guidelines also came into existence. And they can't just come and say, okay, this is conclusive. They still have to follow due process, because the truth is we are the same people that will still come to say, how did they arrive at that? So what INEC has done, for me, is not out of place.
Okay.
And we have to also be careful. Let's give INEC the benefit of doubt that they know what they are doing and they are doing their job, and not assuming that, oh, okay, probably they are doing in favor of some people or the other party or one party. I think we should give them the benefit of doubt and let them fix it and see what the guideline, how far the guideline can help in achieving the best in this menace.
Malam Jaji, contrary to the notion that inconclusive election is a reflection of a weak electoral system, INEC is saying that elections are declared inconclusive in order to ensure the integrity and credibility of the process. What are your thoughts about this?
You see, what we are witnessing now should not surprise any discernible Nigerian, because we are playing adversarial politics. And I don't trust you, you don't trust me. And because it's a competition that must be won by one of us, we all take all kind of, schemes to arrive at, that competitive edge. And in the case of this, voting material, the paper, the rule is that when you turn print, you should not go beyond that line. But you see, I would have preferred a situation where, as an electoral officer, I can use my discretion. The thing going beyond the party I'm voting for, the preponderance, the majority of the printing at least
should be on the party you're voting for. I
but
get your point.
Because of the kind of politics we play in Nigeria, adversarial, whatever, your party agent will say, no, my friend, I won't allow this to go. It has gone beyond that line. And when you insist on that, that is why we are having so many voided votes. And we cannot eat our cake and still have it. That is the position of the law. If it happens that the number of voided, votes are more than what you are going to count, for God's sake, those people whose votes have been voided inadvertently should be given another chance to perform their civic responsibility. It has nothing to do with law. It's about, common sense and tolerance for one another's opinion.
A substantial number of the votes in this election were cancelled. Recall that during the presidential election, in the excess of 1 million, and it's an eye-opener to an effort in futility for many voters who had gone out against all odds. But let's take a look at the conditions for cancelling votes according to Clause 47 of the electoral guidelines for this election. The inability of INEC to deploy materials to polling units, what they call logistical challenge. The use of smart card readers discontinued midway into an election due to sustained malfunction, and also violent disruption at a substantial number of polling units. There are some who would say that these are visible loopholes. So if a politician is not winning in an election, all he needs to do is make these conditions available and have the votes cancelled. How do you react to that?
Yeah, very well. You see, these are some of the issues we talk about most times. Like, don't give rooms for politicians. Politicians they are smart, and most times they walk 10 steps ahead of you. Now, when you give rooms for such loopholes, they capitalize on that. And anyone, like I said, once I sense that, it's not going my way, of course, I could just hypnotize some people, or send some people to go and, disrupt elections and all that. Then the materials coming, it's the duty of the INEC. When you know you want to have an election, it's your duty to make sure that all these materials are available and they get to the polling unit at the right time. Then giving us excuses, but unfortunately, they are still coming up with these excuses. You see, this is not limited to the issues of them. You find out that some people, when they turn print, then the way they fold the papers, the ink comes to another party Now, so what do you say about that? When you fold the paper, you see some of this, I think there's also what we call voters' education, which we don't really have. Because I listened to the man the other time, and I couldn't get what he was saying about voters' education. Some of these people don't even know how to vote. In fact, there was a particular unit that people were voting, and some men came and they're like, you didn't tell us how to even fold the papers. So you find out the ink goes to the other, maybe another political party, and they drop the paper, then you come out to say it's void, and we can't count this. In fact, some, they don't even know. They just print on maybe the middle of the paper, then you now have to start fighting. Okay, where do you have more ink? Where you don't have more ink? See,
Let's open the phone lines very quickly because of time. Okorocha is calling in from Arochukwu. Okorafor, good morning.
Hello, sir. It's Mazo Crawford, not Okorocha.
Okorafor, please go ahead with the contribution.
It's Mazo Crawford. Good morning, sir. Good morning. I get to the studio.
Good morning.
You see, we pray and we thank God that come 23rd of this month, the inconclusive will turn to conclusive election in this country. Now, what we should be asking ourselves is this. What are the causes or what is it to all these things? There are three major factors affecting this country. The earlier we solve it, the better for us. One, poverty. Two, illiteracy. Three, hunger. These are the three major factors that led to all this inconclusive. Every liturgy now inconclusive. Education inconclusive. Even our building now inconclusive. Now, what Nigeria should be facing is that we should try as much as possible that subsequent elections, all these things will not reoccur. And that is why I'm saying Nigeria, go out and vote people that you know that can deliver. Not people that will go there and start the robbing minds. Now, do you know that if the National Assembly have stepped into that electoral bill, all this robbing thing we are talking will not happen. But they overlook it now. They have come back. I was so surprised the way they said the House of Rep is trying to look into the election. What are you looking at? You saw the electoral bill that is supposed to step into and find a license to. You didn't. Every day you go on the stage and come back. Now, these are the repercussions of all this long-term research they have been doing for this state.
I think you made your point known, Okorafor.
Work.
Thank you for your contribution on the program this morning. But let's look at the logic behind this. Let's take Adamawa and Plateau, for instance. The margin between the top two contenders in Adamawa is just 32,476. Now, the cancelled votes in that election were 40,000 plus. So if we go by the logic that just 50% or even less than 50% of registered voters turn out for votes, I mean, how much difference is this going to make? Do we expect all the 40,000 people to come out? And do we also expect that the second or the first runner-up is going to capture all of these votes to upturn the election result?
You see, that is the reason why we are told that the law is an ass. Unfortunately, that is the position of the law. So whatever happened thereafter shouldn't bother us. We should be, guided by the strict adherence to what the law is saying. Otherwise, there will be chaos. And even now, as INEC is now, insisting that because of so lacuna, they are demanding for a rerun. People are still complaining. But that notwithstanding, maybe I should use this opportunity if the people in charge of this country are listening. Voters' education is very, 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 very paramount. And the agency of government to do it is the National Orientation Agency. I remember when Ghana had similar problem. The late Dr. K. Busia. This thing can be Googled.
The NOA seemed to have slept for a while now. But
no,
I
spoke with the top men there. They said they were underfunded.
I see.
Let's take
a call very quickly and then we'll be back to discuss this. Good morning, Saidu from Niger State.
Okay, good morning.
Please go ahead with your contribution.
Good morning.
Good morning.
We can hear you.
Okay. My contribution is that I just want to see free and fair supplementary elections.
All right.
In all those states that are affected. Because, hello?
Well, with you, Saidu. Go ahead.
Okay. I heard that they want to do all those illegalities in all those states.
We get your point precisely, Saidu. Thank you so much for calling. Now, that's the issue of trust in this election. In all of these supplementary elections in 6 states, we understand that the opposition is leading in 5 of the 6 states. So you go on social media, the reaction is, they want to manipulate this election. Remember what happened in Osun State? The opposition was leading, and then when the supplementary election held, the incumbent government won that particular exercise. How does INEC improve transparency such that, because it's not just for this election, such that subsequent ones, the electorate will have confidence in the process?
Well, like first, the voters' education, which is paramount, which is key. They can't joke with it. If we have it, it will be better. Mostly, if we have that, we may not be talking about inconclusive elections. That's right. That is one. Then two, I think my appeal will go to the people. Give INEC benefit of doubt. What happened in Osun was glaring. There was no manipulation of sort. It was simple. I think people need to be open-minded. People need to be open-minded, and they need to familiar themselves also to probably the Electoral Act and some of these guidelines and the way this thing operates, and not just conclude that, because the ruling party, they want to manipulate, and that's the reason why, they are saying inconclusive, and they want to use PDP. No, I think they should be open-minded. Let us give INEC a chance, a benefit of doubt, and if anything happens, the court is there. Let's take
Kelvin's call from Ikoyi. Good morning, Kelvin. Kelvin, are you there?
Yes, I'm there.
Please go ahead with your contribution.
Yeah, good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Yes, I'm there. I'm listening to you. Okay, what I'm just trying to say is that the way they are running things in this country is not encouraging the Nigerian youth. It's not encouraging the Nigerian youth. I don't know what these elders are really teaching us. Because when they are doing these things, you find out that the little ones are learning. And tomorrow, where are we taking this country to?
It's all right, Kevin. I think you made your point there. It is very key. He corroborated your point about, you mentioned that NOA was underfunded and the need to improve voter education. But at this point in time, we saw the huge desperation that characterized the governorship election. In your state, a sitting member of the House of Reps was shot. He died in that process. How do we ensure that supplementary elections are not characterized by a re-energized form of desperation that will now, rubbish the process?
You see, certain areas of the country are known for violence, whether you handle the election properly or not. We know we are all Nigerians. I don't need to be mentioning particular places. But what is at stake now? Like those who are losing from the exercise, definitely they will be right to conjure so many excuses to justify why they feel that they are being cheated.
That's right.
But like he was saying, Osun, there's something in analysis we call intervening variables. 1 + 1 is 2. But if you add 2 to 1, you won't get 2 again. You have 3. Intervening variable in Osun happens to be Otunba Yola Omishore. He was spoken to and he changed. The same thing Akpabio.
The bottom line is that wouldn't have happened if that election was not declared inconclusive.
But what made it to be inconclusive? We should not run away from these facts. But because people would like to discredit a system in which they are not benefiting from, this is really what is happening. Akpabio, the day Akpabio joined APC, PDP's campaign fell flat. The same thing Akala. Had it not been for, the issue people had with...
But Akpabio wasn't able to deliver the figures in that particular election.
Are you sure?
He didn't
don't say that on national TV.
Well,
Akpabio
that
has
is the results from INEC as we stand.
So
now.
how can we accept that? How can we accept that from INEC and we are now refusing to accept?
But let me just hold you briefly to see if George is online. Hello, George. Are you there?
Yes. Good morning, Nifemi, and good morning to your guests.
Good morning. Go ahead, please.
Kindly permit me to take you back to the first segment of your program this morning. This building collapse that happened yesterday in Lagos Island. I wish it was the Lagos State government officials you brought, the town planning authority officials that you brought to answer some questions. Some of the people in that area were saying yesterday that building had been marked for demolition for a long time. Each time the officials come there, they are bribed That's the allegation that the person openly made, and they do not enforce it. Now, who approved a school? What type of a school is in a one-bedroom or two-bedroom apartment on a four-story building in that area? What kind of school is that? Who granted the license for that school? I mean, it is about time that we value lives in this country, Nifemi. That's just what I want to say.
Thank you for your contribution. Unfortunately, we're way past that now. We might have to discuss that subsequently on this program. But we're looking at, one way or the other, this has turned into staggered elections because we're going to, on the 23rd of this month, we have a governorship election hold in supplementary elections in 6 states of the Federation. Now, one way to look at it is, perhaps we have enough security personnel to police this exercise. But what we saw in Rivers would make anyone have a second thought, whether or not security agencies are really playing the neutral role in the electoral exercise. Do you expect to see anything change on the 23rd of March?
Well, I expect to see a change on the 23rd. One, because I was an observer during the election, the last election, and went round. There was a particular area, the wards and the polling units in those areas, no single police officer. No single security agency in that environment. Now, tell me, if something had happened around that vicinity, what do you think would have happened? Then we will make noise. And they told us they sent thousands of law enforcement agency, out there. Now, even areas that we know that are porous, areas that we know that they are known for violence, the flashpoints. What were the police doing? Look at the instances of the presidential election, the one that happened at Okota, how we find out that, there was a call to some police and they said they went to ease themselves and something and they disappeared. That happened. Policeman. But, I mean, look at River State. We know River State for what River State is. Now, if the police officers are there and they cannot be neutral, then I think it is a slap on democracy.
For a while, gentlemen. Kende is calling in from Ilorin, the Kwara State capital. Good morning, Kende.
Good morning.
You have just 30 seconds. Go ahead with the contribution.
I think we are the problems ourselves in this country, especially youths. INEC need to follow guidelines. They should not care about what people say. INEC are doing the right thing. When PDP won in Oyo State, nobody complained. So we shouldn't be blaming the ruling party. Nigeria is more than the interest of any personal individual. INEC should go ahead with the run, and nothing we have, heaven will not fall. We should follow rules. That's INEC guidelines. Thank you.
Thank you, Kenny, for your contribution. Malam Jaji, it's interesting that there are divergent and different opinions and reactions to this particular situation.
There should be.
But are you optimistic that these supplementary elections will be credible and acceptable by majority of the people?
You see, when you talk majority in quotes, minority in quotes, definitely those who will lose out of it, they will complain that they've been rigged out. And those who will win will say the election will be credible. But the point I want to make about militarization of Nigerians, are we delving into selective amnesia? 6 months, a year before this exercise took place, we've been regaled with a lot of stories of imported, army uniform and all this and that. My son is serving in Ogun State. We had the news before the election that somebody was throwing National Youth Corps, whatever, for thugs. I called the boy. I said, my friend, no matter the amount they are going to pay you, please come home. I will pay you. Let them do their whatever. But to God be the glory. Something like that didn't happen. Maybe because they got to know that people are aware of their plans. So this is politics. I want to have competitive edge against my opponent. The same opponent has got the same thing against me. Now, I saw a video where the Nigerian army arrested some people dressed in Nigerian army camouflage and all the rest. People are not talking about that. Now, if you leave the society unguided, and nobody can convince me that the Nigerian police is, equal to the task as it is now. If you don't have the army.
Let's take this conversation to Ojota. Today is standing by. Today, you have 30 seconds. Please, let's have your opinion.
Yeah, good morning.
Good morning. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, I'm calling from Ojota. I would like to contribute to the program.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, I would like to support Mr. Daniel in a point that he made earlier. In a particular area, when it's obvious to everybody that it's volatile, there is nothing stopping the federal government giving proactive of security to take effect. River State, as a case study, we all know what really happened in River State. And I don't want to call a name, a sitting governor that will always come on here and give a word of threat. That shows that he is so desperate. If he's on top of the game, he doesn't need to come. There was a time they showed him, he was holding a cutlass in an open field, telling people that we are ready for them. That is an encouragement of violence. If somebody can come to a public here and showing to the citizen is governing, showing something like that, a weapon, what does that imply to the younger generation coming up?
I think you made your point very clearly there. Thank you for calling in today. We'll have to wrap up this conversation. So Malam Jaji talked about the issue in Rivers where some people impersonated the military. Now, there are some who would say that the fact that thugs can even wear military, paraphernalia means that there is not enough security to man that area. We don't know what's happening in Rivers now. I think that election has been suspended. We're yet to get updates from INEC. But how do we tackle voter apathy? The election, remember, was suspended. And now it's like the second time it's going to be suspended in areas where there will be supplementary elections. Do you expect people to come out?
Well, I said this at one of the programs before this election that I'm afraid that the number of people that will come out at this election will not be that of the presidential election because of this voters' apathy we're talking about. Because people see things happening. Nobody wants to die. Nobody knows that they're going to fight there or something is going to happen. Okay, like for example, this rerun, you may not get the numbers we are talking about because people are afraid. People don't even know what's going to happen next. So my appeal to, INEC, to work with federal government to make sure that the security law enforcement agencies are proactive.
Gentlemen, we have to go.
And to be on ground for this. Because
Malam Jaji, do you expect people to turn out for the supplementary election? Are you optimistic?
Politics is local. A governor that did not pay salary for 10 months, is he encouraging anybody to have confidence in the system? So if people come out, yes, good. If they don't come out, we are the architect of that apathy, and we need to examine why it is so.
Malam Ahmed Mayosore Jaji is a political affairs analyst. Thank you for joining us on the program today.
Thank you.
I'll be sure that we have more time subsequently to discuss this issue.
I want to.
Ola Daniels is a lawyer and political affairs analyst. It's always a pleasure to have you on the program.
Thank you.
We'll be back tomorrow with another exciting one. Thanks for joining us. I am Nifemi Oguntori.